All right, what's going on, everybody? Tyler Relph, Mike Timmons, back with another episode on our podcast. We're going to talk about amateurism in basketball, especially people going to the pros, the D-League, the new situation that they have going on there. We're also just going to talk about the development of players from a young age, the really good players, and how they develop through the years. We'll talk about picking schools, the importance of picking the right school, and we'll also get into some other topics. As far as the COVID situation here in Dallas, things are starting to open back up. We also have gyms are starting to open back up, 25% to 50%, restaurants, and we think tournaments in Dallas with kids playing and stuff is probably going to start in mid-June. So, that's kind of what we're looking at there. Let us know in the comments section, what's going on in your area. Obviously, we have followers all across the world, so we want to know how you guys are doing. Hopefully staying safe and healthy, and hopefully your families are staying safe and healthy too. So we're just going to jump right into this. Let's first talk about the new situation with the D-League.
Call it the G League, bro.
I'm going to call it the G League because that's what it is. Okay. Don't care about that league. But Jalen Green kind of set the tone, I think, this year. A couple other guys followed him, Isaiah Todd, and then Deshaun Nix. Yeah. And I think it's interesting that that's the avenue they choose for a couple reasons on the competitive side. One, I don't know if high school players out of high school actually realize how good some of these pros are. In the G League, you're playing against former McDonald's All-Americans. You're playing against some of the best college players that ever, that played.
Oh, yeah, like five-star, like big names.
Guys that average, 20 points in college and stuff. I mean, we're talking, guys that won national championships are backups in the G League. So the competition is going to be stiff. I really am interested to see how these guys do. I think Jalen Green is going to be really good. I think he, athleticism-wise, skill set wise, I think he has a chance to be special. I think just the one thing he's got to work on is understanding the game and his strength. What do you think on Jalen?
Well, one thing I'll start off with saying is that when I first heard that, I agreed with you. Like, a lot of these dudes don't know about the physicality. They think the G League is just because you didn't make it. Like, these dudes feel like they're on the cusp of making it to the NBA. So, like, every single night they're coming out different. One thing that I did respect with this whole situation was that they won't be playing exclusive G League schedule.
Yeah, right.
Like, so they'll be on their separate team. They'll play some G League teams that won't count like in the schedule, but they'll like play, academies and stuff like that. So not necessarily protecting them, but like realistically, like these kids couldn't hold up in that situation for a full season.
Yeah.
But I do think that there are specific type of players that would play well, and I think Jalen Green would be one of those type of guys. Yeah,
I think that a lot of NBA scouts are going to view, or at least I would view, I'm not viewing on the games that you're being protected, I'm viewing on the games that may not count against the G League. That's who you're going to play next year.
That's true.
And that's how I would view it. I think that the athleticism in the G League is there. The only thing is, those players, for whatever reason, aren't in the NBA. But I think as far as the game is concerned and viewing it and being able to watch and say, okay, this translates, it's better than the college game. The college game, I mean, there's no translation. It's just, it's a different basketball game. It's tighter. There's no space. People can sit in the lane. So I think it's going to be good. I think that kids got to understand that you better be really, really good if you want to play. Like, I like Isaiah Todd. I would have liked to seen Isaiah Todd go to college, I think.
And why is that? Do you think the weight room? Because, I mean, he's longer, lanky, like.
I think there's
skill set.
I think as far as Isaiah Todd goes, I think he needs like that college structure.
Yeah.
I think Juwan Howard would have been great for him. That's one of the reasons. Juwan Howard played in the league, he knows the league. But the strength and conditioning, and then being the man on that team, I think Jalen Green's going to be the guy.
Yeah.
And Dayshawn Nix, I love Dayshawn Nix. Mm-hmm. I think he would have been an insane college point guard.
Oh, for sure.
So I'm interested to see how Dayshawn guards at that level.
And you say like how he guards and things like that. Like, what do you think some of these young guys like need as far as like what strengths do you think they need going to the G League to be successful? Like offensively and defensively. Like, what do you think some of the things like skills?
Well, I think the biggest thing is skill set wise, you got to be able to shoot it, handle it, but it's the physicality.
Right.
Like take RJ for example, RJ Hampton. His body right like today, as of what it was when he went to Australia, is crazy different. I think if he went to Australia today, he would maybe be one of the better players in that league, just based on his physicality. And I think for RJ, and you've been around it too, when he got back, it was like, okay, the weight room I need to concentrate on that, because he felt the physicality at that level. I played Division I high major, and it was physical for sure. But then when you play in pro runs and stuff, it's just different.
Right.
I think body type.
Would you say as far as with RJ, regardless of what he did performance-wise over there, do you think that just going over there and just being involved in that and the strength and stuff was the best benefit he could have had from the situation?
Yeah, I think it also goes down to like money too. I mean, Jalen Green's probably going to make over $1 million.
Yeah.
Right? Endorsements, all that other stuff,
Exactly.
over $1 million. So, can you really fault a kid for,
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. Like, as far as like right now, if you redid it again, would you go college? Is that? It might be an old school mentality.
I mean, if I was good enough,
Yeah.
I was definitely going to college. How good I was, but I mean, the way I look at it is these people are like, oh, why is he skipping college? It's like if a 17-year-old kid got a job offer for $1 million out of high school, he would take it.
And the one thing that I compare to like real life situations is there's 15, 16, 17-year-olds getting offers from Google right out of high school,
right,
to go make bank.
And we don't talk about, we're not saying, oh, why you, like they're doing it because they're going to make money.
Exactly.
And why can't these kids do the same thing? I love it.
Right.
I think as far as RJ goes, I think going over there helped him as far as mentally. I think at times it was a struggle, which I think was great.
For sure.
Because it helps you fight through that other stuff. I think some of these kids in college are still babied,
Yeah.
And I think when they get to the league, it's like, it's you're out.
Right.
Like you better compete and figure it out, and nobody's gonna baby you. They're paying you millions of dollars to perform.
Yeah.
So I think for RJ that was great. And then the physicality and learning the game, I think was, really good for him.
And I think honestly, like with Jalen, Isaiah Todd and Dayshawn Nix, doing this, I think since it's NBA ran and they want to get more of these guys, I think, hopefully the weight room situation, just everything will be as most elite, because they want success stories out of these three kids for sure. So, they're going to make sure that they're in the best shape, put on the weight that they would at a pro situation or, college. But, I think that's where they're going to benefit the most, is that the NBA wants to get this right.
Yeah.
If those kids come out and struggle because of the physicality, or they go to the league next year and, they're behind, then it's not going to look good in the NBA.
Yeah, it's going to be based on, the draft. If these kids, I think Jalen Green is projected number 1 or 2. And if he struggles and drops, kids are going to be very cautious to do that. So it's going to be interesting to see, as far as the politics go on that side of it, how much, because there's politics in anything, but I think that's going to be interesting.
Let's talk about another name that was one of the ones that had an opportunity to go do this, but chose college, with Greg Brown. Greg Brown had an offer that they came out with. It was between $300,000 and $500,000, similar to the other guys, but he chose Texas. Let's just kind of talk about that. You think it was a good move on his end, based on the basketball player he is?
I think Greg Brown's game is more suited for the NBA. I think he's a slasher, playing space, 3-and-D guy type, uber athletic.
Oh, yeah.
I think Greg Brown, because of the college basketball, what college basketball is, and the tight confines, I think he's gonna be good because his athleticism is gonna take over at times. But I think he's gonna struggle at times, especially at Texas, because I don't know how much help he has.
Well, I mean, they have all returning people back, so it's a veteran team.
And they still were good.
Yeah.
Last year.
Yeah.
No,
they had injuries down the stretch for sure. I think with Greg, I think Texas was always what it was. Mm-hmm. He started getting some real serious recruiting from SEC schools and stuff like that. And I think the G League was a real option. But it just depends. I think one thing with Greg that people don't talk about enough is that he's one of the few youth athletes that have invested in a brand of himself.
Yeah.
Shout out Hedgehog Fam that he does. He has a YouTube channel, which I'll kind of talk about later with the branding situation. And I think the situation, if we go back to Zion going to Duke, a lot of these kids going to college and getting that college fan base increase their brand so much more.
Oh, yeah, you're talking, Duke, Kentucky's, as far as basketball goes, Duke, Kentucky's, North Carolina.
But just your brand on and off the court. And Greg Brown has his YouTube channel, has his merchandise stuff. So I think him going to a Texas situation is going to increase his brand off the court, which might have been a play in as far as his decision. Yeah,
I think as far as Greg goes, I think it's just going to be, for him this year, it's almost like make or break it.
Right.
If he's got to be one and done.
Yeah.
He's just got to keep getting better.
Right. Now let's transition into that one and done situation. You just brought up the pressure of it has to be one and done. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about schools like Kentucky and Duke where they're recycling one and done players each year. Let's talk about the mindset of a kid that maybe is supposed to be a one and done and has to be a sophomore. Just let's talk about that mentality.
Well, college coaches don't like talking about that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because all they want to talk about is the guys that they get one and done. They don't want to talk about the top 10 kids that all of a sudden have to stay there for 4 years.
Right, for sure.
And that's part of my problem with a lot of these blue bloods. In Kentucky's one of my, Kentucky has all these pros. Well, how about the guys that, were top players and then didn't develop?
Yeah. And then they just have to go to the league just because, they have to declare to go pro just because of what's coming behind them. Right,
and I think there is a lot of pressure with that. I mean, you're going to have guys like your Zions. Zion is, freak, but I don't think anybody expected him to be what he was. But then on the other side of that, you have, the point guard, not Tyus, his brother. Trey.
Yeah.
His development might have been hindered by having RJ Barrett and Zion. You know what I mean? Because he was more of a facilitator.
Right.
I got a guard, and then he has that, that X of can he shoot the basketball?
Right.
And with that team, he doesn't have the ability to shoot like that because he's not the first option.
And then I think the narrative changes as far as Duke fans love it. They love that because he's a good college point guard.
Oh yeah.
They love that he's around, but as far as his mind, I remember the story when Devon Booker left Kentucky, him and Tyler Relph was best friends. And now Tyler Relph was coming back as a sophomore, was now he's seeing his boys and his friends in the league making money, not having to go to class and stuff like that. I think that mentally affects some people.
Yeah, and Tyler Relph is.
Obviously the cards were stacked against him with his height.
Yeah, and he's not. That's a tough one. Tyler. I don't even know where Tyler's playing right now, but. Yeah, that's just it's different. But you look at Devon Booker. Yeah. Devon Booker was the sixth man on that Kentucky team, sixth, and he's arguably the best player from that team. You know what I mean? So it's what was Cal seeing?
Right.
That everybody else. How did this dude become this superstar? He was playing 19 minutes a game at Kentucky.
Yeah.
It was insane.
I think he averaged 9 or 10 points a game.
Yeah, and then he goes to but they have. the one and done situation is just you got to produce, and then it goes into, are you worried about winning? Does winning really matter? And then picking the right schools. Like, I think a lot of these kids don't pick the right schools.
What do you think? And I think with social media these days, like, kids pick their biggest offer just because.
Like, I think my favorite commit last year was Drew Timme. He went to the school that fit him, that was the best situation for him, and he produced.
Right. And he produced knowing that he was behind some other guys. So but he was.
He knew exactly what his role was going to be, and now his role is going to increase next year. Drew knew he wasn't a one and done guy.
Right.
Knew it, and knew, like, I got to be on this plan of development. Mm-hmm. I'm okay to play behind these guys. My sophomore year, I'll be more of the man. And, like, to me, he made that was the best commitment, I think, maybe of anybody in the class. And he really, like, if you listen to the coaches and stuff, like, Drew is what Drew was in high school, like that ultimate competitor, the ultimate leader, even as a freshman.
Right.
And he fits that Gonzaga program. You know what I'm saying?
And definitely. Like, he looks like a guy, like, even when he's getting recruited by them, you're like, that's a good
guy.
Big.
And then there's other guys, that want to play at that high major level and just aren't good enough.
Yeah.
And they should have went, like, mid-major. Right. But because it's like, I got to play high, like.
Is that what the transfer portal?
I think I think that's why it's crazy. I think, and part of it is the coaches, like, they got to get guys, right? Yeah. If they have 5 scholarships, got to get 5 guys.
Right.
Well, 2 of those dudes aren't going to pan out. Mm-hmm. So either they're going to be okay not playing for the rest of their career, or they're going to transfer. You know what I mean? It is what it is. I have no problem with people transferring. If a coach gets a better deal, he's going to leave.
Yeah.
So why are you mad at a kid that isn't going to play and wants to play college basketball, but you're not going to play him? Like, if he wants to leave, let him leave.
I just think these kids leave without a plan.
Yeah, they don't know what they're doing.
They leave because, the coach is hating on me. Not necessarily hating, but they just didn't get the playing time they expected.
Yeah.
Maybe it wasn't a realistic situation that they're going to play anyways, but in their mind they created that. But then they leave, and a lot of these kids, like we talked, I think last time, where you went from West Virginia to St Bonaventure, and you were like, I think the guards in the mid-majors were tougher than the guards I played against in the Big East.
Yeah.
Paraphrasing that. But, like, a lot of these kids are like, okay, I'll go down a little level and I'll destroy.
Yeah, it
just doesn't happen like that. And a lot of kids have to sit and wait, and then they've never had to, like, go through that adversity of not being on a basketball court, and it just all kind of.
Right. I mean, look at the Portland Trailblazers, Weber State, and Lehigh. Those aren't even mid-majors. Those are low majors.
Right, yeah.
And those 2 are the 2 of the best guards in the NBA.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I think that's where it gets lost. Like, you develop, like, if I had to do it all over again, I would have went to a mid right away so that I could have the ball in my hand and I could play through those 4 years and I could get better. I think a lot of these kids go to, these high majors, and it's like, you don't fit there. Or they go to a high major that's not good. And it's like, mid-majors would destroy those, like, and I'm not, but like an Oklahoma State. And I mean, Oklahoma State's going to be better because Cade's there.
Right.
And the other kid they got. But, like, don't go to Oklahoma State because they're a high major.
Right, for sure.
Because there's schools like Bonaventure, if they played Oklahoma State last year, would beat them by 20.
Right.
Just because they're better.
Yeah.
And then you have, like, Dayton, which, I mean, A10, but, that's at high or that mid-major plus. Yeah. But he's going to be a top 5 pick.
Right.
He didn't have any scholarships out of college. So development's huge, I think.
I get that it's hard to sit there and wait and understand that your time's coming, because as these young kids, like, you've only seen yourself as the guy, and, like, once you get broken apart and, like, now you're at the bottom of the totem pole, it's hard to see yourself sometimes as being that guy again. So you're like, let me get out of the situation and be that guy as quick as possible. And then they realize that the process is never going to be as quick as it was.
Exactly. I agree.
And I don't, like you said, you don't mind people transferring. I don't either, but, like, you just have a realistic plan. And I will say this, the advice I give to a lot of these young kids that are coming up, that I filmed and stuff like that, is even if in your mind you're not playing and you are like, I'm out of here, don't waste the season. get better in practice, get strong in the weight room, utilize that year. Because if you shut it down mentally and physically, just because you're not playing, you're just getting even further behind.
Yeah, and they want to go in there and play right away as freshmen, and we're not talking about, like, let's look at this. Like, we're not talking about Cade Cunningham, Evan Mobley, Scotty Barnes, Jalen Suggs, BJ Boston, Zaire. These guys are going to play.
Right.
We're talking about the 100 to 200,
right.
And those guys think they're going to go in there and play 30 minutes. Like, you're not. You got to earn that.
Right.
A
lot of these high majors will recruit you as a guy that's possibly
a role guy.
A guy in 2 or 3 years that they're that they see in their future.
Yep, for sure.
Let's go ahead and transition over to the NCAA specifically and why you think a player would choose the NCAA over this money route right now. And the thing I'll start off with is, just being around like the school pride in that situation, and like talk about what it meant to you, as far as, because I know you love to talk about how St Bonaventure has the best fans and stuff like that. You don't shut up about it, so
yeah,
like that does mean something.
Yeah, I think, like, as far as I go, I knew I was going to play 4 years, but yeah, I think it means something.
Right, and let's go back. Like, not everybody has this opportunity.
Yeah, but I think a lot of guys, like, I think Greg Brown's a perfect example. I think that he wanted to play at Texas since he was a kid, and that was his dream.
I think his dad went there as well.
His dad went there, but, like, I think Greg always wanted to go to Texas. Yeah. So do that. You know what I mean? Be at Texas. Right. Get the experience. Like, basketball's great, but if you have a dream, like, go to that. Like, his dream wasn't to play in the G League. His dream was to go to Texas. Yeah. Go to Texas, get the college experience. I think a lot of guys want the college experience. I think college basketball has its benefits. Like, I think playing in college arenas is crazy. Mm-hmm. I played at, some of the best arenas in the country in college, and I'll always remember those times. So I think a lot of them, either wanted to play college basketball. It's more of a, what you're gonna get.
Right.
Like, we know we're gonna go to practice. We got our dorm or apartment or whatever. I think the G League right now, it's kind of up in the air. Like, you don't know what you're living. So I think once that gets out and figured out, then I think more kids may try to take that route if it works.
So I think the G League this year decided that, like, players have to stay in nicer hotels, or like they get their own rooms now, mm-hmm. based on what it was before.
Right.
But it just depends what you want. Like, if like the big man on campus atmosphere is what you've always wanted, and I think that's naturally instilled in a lot of our minds, just because the G League and all this going pro is new.
Very new.
So everybody's, even if they want to be one and done, like, I'll go to Kentucky, I'll go to Duke and be the man. Everybody will love me, they'll know me, then I'll go get my money.
Yep. Yeah, I think like Terrence Clark going to Kentucky, BJ Boston's going to Kentucky. Like, those guys, they're still in that mode of, let's team up,
right?
And, see if we can win a national championship. And then they got the guard too. Who's the kid from LA? Devon. I think Devon's. I don't know where Devon. He's 24th, but like I think Devon's got a chance to be really special.
Right.
But that's what they want to do. They want to go. They want to try to win a national championship. And it just sucks for guys like, like your Tyrese Maxey's, who, probably wanted to win a national championship, play in the NCAA tournament, and do all that stuff. And then, Dayton, who, that school, this was their best chance ever to win a national title.
I think this is one of the years that there was no clear-cut favorites. So all these kids had realistic expectations that they had a chance to make a run. And if you just get into the tournament, everybody has that hope.
Yeah, and especially like Dayton will never have that team again.
Right.
And they had a legit chance to Final Four national championship. So yeah, I think it's
just what you want. We can see what the G League situation looks like. If they're taken care of, they all prosper and do what they need to do and are top picks in the draft. Well, then you might see like super teams being formed in the G League. If these kids are like, hey, we want to kind of make money, we want to go win a national championship, but we have this revenue like opportunity where we can all get a bag and be together and still play. Because the one thing I'm only 29, but I've seen the social media situation increase to where back when we were playing, you're a little older than me, but we weren't friends with our opponents.
Ever.
Like, now everybody's on Twitter, good game, which I don't mind that. I'll probably do the same thing now just because of what it is, but that dog situation and. Well, I mean, but like that's just how it is today. The society.
No, it is, and
it's like good
it's like,
game. Everybody's shouting each other out from different cities and stuff like that. So there are true like friendships and stuff from the East Coast to the West Coast. So these kids do have dreams of playing with each other. They talk about it at AU tournaments, elite camps and stuff like that. So
they see each other a lot more. They got the Nike League. They have the Adidas. Like they see each other. Like we never saw anybody.
Yeah. And there's more realistic situation for kids to create super teams on the G League with all of them.
Right.
Because could you imagine getting 7 or 8 of the top 25 kids in the country to go play in the G League together?
Right.
Like that could very easily be the norm starting next year based on this situation.
Yeah.
So we'll just have to see. I mean, personally, like I would love the college being the big man on campus if I could. But I mean, how could you say no to all this money as well?
Yeah, and then you have, you got alumni. Like if you go to Kentucky and you win a national championship, like you're the alumni. You know everybody there. Yeah.
I mean, you're set. Like, if you go to Kentucky and play 1 year, you're part of Big Blue Nation forever. Like, it doesn't matter. Even the cats that transfer. I know Khalil Whitney left, and like, they were like, you're still Kentucky forever.
But like, that's a perfect example. Like, Khalil Whitney's a perfect example of a kid that shouldn't have went to Kentucky because they put him in a role, and he didn't develop, and he wasn't used to playing that type of basketball.
And he started 10 games for him, is what people don't like.
Yeah, he was really good, but if he went to like a school like still a high major, but a place where he could have.
He's from Chicago, maybe like in Illinois. I mean.
Yeah, somewhere you could develop. Like Kentucky was like, well, you're going to play in this role, and that's what Cal had to do for Kentucky to be good, but for him, it hindered his development. Now he has to transfer, and now.
I think he's going pro.
And now he's going pro. What's going on, everyone? This is Tyler Relph. Follow us on Patreon. We're going to have YouTube live sessions going over skill development. And we're also going to have a lot of content on there that you can't get otherwise. So make sure you guys go follow our Patreon account right now. Let's get it. Right, with that foot, working on my shift, loading to my left, and pulling that ball back across. We're really working range of motion right now with our handle. So we're going to go 20 reps right, 20 reps left right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. All right, we're going to jump into talking about kind of AAU and young kids and how they come up through.
Right.
And in my opinion, how parents and the better players run AAU. It's not the programs.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think when kids get to college, we get mad at the kids for, and I hear from college coaches all the time, they're not ready, not that they're not ready from a skill standpoint, they're not ready mentally, because sometimes the first time these kids have been told no is when they walk onto a college campus. And then it's like, wait, what? What did you just say to me? Like, don't talk to me like that. And it's like, we're just trying to coach you and make you better. So a lot of times in AAU, like, I find it funny because I've had luckily a lot of good players come through, my gym, but they know right off the bat, whether you're Julius Randle, RJ Hampton, or CJ Miles, or anybody. Like, I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, if you suck at something, I'm gonna tell you suck. And a lot of times, it's the first time somebody said that to these kids, and I don't care. You don't have to be in my gym if you don't want to be. But on the AAU side, and you know it more than I do, I feel like if you are too hard on a good player, or you think you may lose them, you're gonna pull back and you're gonna kind of like coddle them so that they stay with the program, because good players bring coaches, notoriety, and wins.
Wins, yeah.
And I don't like that part of AAU. I actually hate that part. I think that's, to me, that's the biggest joke in AAU, is like the kids and the parents run stuff. And then we expect these kids to go to college, and for Coach Cal and these guys to be able to coach them hard and them not kind of be shook a little bit.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm involved in an AAU program here in Dallas, and each year they go through like a training camp session. like they don't say you're part of the team. They say you can come work out. So they'll bring like 20 kids in.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of these top names, when they get the invite, they're like, well, I have a TCU offer and a Texas Tech offer. And like that specific program I'm speaking of, it's like, okay, that's fine. Come in, let's see if you're a good fit. But that's exactly what you mean. Like, these parents and these players, want it handed to them. And if you don't hand it to them the way they want it, then they'll move on to the next. And because AAU is a business now with all these different shoe contracts and shoe deals, like, especially like a lot of these, Under Armours and Adidas lose players to Nike all the time. Mm-hmm. So like, some programs, especially in those smaller shoe,
they're
going to do everything they can. Like, they'll be the most yes man to try to keep these kids.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a tough situation ever since money's come involved with this. Is that, like, you're right. Like, the player runs it. And even if you have a kid as an 8th grader, 9th grader, like, that doesn't mean that they're going to be on your high level travel team as a 17U, because there's just so many moving pieces these days.
Yeah. Well, I think in that AAU team you're talking about is probably one of the better programs as far as not having the guy and still winning games.
Yeah.
And they win because I think that they create that atmosphere of, like, if you're not a dog and you don't want to compete, like, you don't have to be here.
Right.
Where you have these other teams that have 2-3 top 20 kids, and they'll lose to those other teams because there's so many moving pieces and, well, I want the ball, or, there's something going on behind the scenes.
Right.
And it's just like, to me, it's just crazy as far as parents and all that stuff. Like, sometimes these parents didn't even play, and they're trying to either run things or yell at refs or say, hey, my kid should be playing X amount. And it's just funny, man. It's really, even like I have a 6-year-old, and even when he plays, like, some of these parents on his team are like insane. And I'm like sitting there like, he's 6. Like, he doesn't even care. Like,
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
they're all the time. Like, your son, like, was like, do I have to go play basketball today? Like,
yeah, like,
some days he wants to, some days he doesn't.
yeah. It's like, and I'm supposed to be like, no, we're gonna work. Like, we're gonna work out today. We're gonna, like, no, you want to play? Like, you're a kid. Be a kid. And that's where it gets lost. Sometimes, like, these 5th graders are really good, and all of a sudden, right at 5th grade, like, you're not a kid anymore. Like, this is what you're gonna do, and this is, and then if it doesn't pan out, like, mentally, they're like, wait, what? Like, what do I do now?
I mean, especially now with these, shoe sponsored programs, like, they're boasting and bragging the fact that they have, like, the top 2025 and 2026 program in the country. Mm-hmm. And, like, what they're trying to keep a pipeline strong and trying to, like, continue. But there's just so many moving parts, and I think with the exposure of social media, like, now like you said, like, parents see what other people are saying about their kid, and, like, now they have a platform where they can speak on behalf of their kid, and they see the power that all these programs want them, and it's just like, you're right, like, the player and the parent do run this.
Yeah, and a lot of it is because of the social media. Like, like, when I played, I was Mr. Basketball in New York State. Like, my dad never said shit to my AAU coach.
Right.
Ever.
Yeah.
No matter what. And didn't have a platform to ever say anything, and I don't think he ever would, because there was a separation. Like, that's the AAU team. I'm the dad. Let me be the dad. I'll support, but I'm not gonna be insane about it. Like, now, I mean, sometimes you have parents traveling or calling coaches in college talking about, why isn't my kid playing, or traveling up there and trying to meet with like, you're insane if you're a parent and you think that you can call a college coach and complain about playing time at a high major level, or you think you have the right to meet with them. Like, you're insane. But it's because they've been doing it for the last 10 years. Right. And they think they can control the narrative. When you get to college, come on.
Yeah.
They don't care. Like, I played at college, I coached in college. Like, don't ever think that your child is above the team. Because he's not.
And I think now with more and more exposure, like, yes, if a kid can play, a lot of stuff is just gonna, like, they're gonna let it happen. But now, like, coaches, media members, like, these parents that are, like, over the top, like, are starting to get exposed in that area where like some coaches just like are starting to be like, I'm not dealing with that. I don't care how good the player is. And it's just going to continue to get worse because like we talk about with social media, everybody feels like they have a platform and there's somebody. From media members that just want to talk hoops, that think that they are quote unquote scouts and things like that, and like parents as well. Like, you know, a lot of these parents feed off the attention of being an AAU mom or dad because, you know, they have a platform to talk and be loud and like, you know, share their thoughts. And like college coaches follow this and see these things, and I'm seeing more and more now that like I'll be at tournaments around college coaches and like parents will be discussed and, you know, almost joked and made fun of to where like now the kids being joked on are not even like really given a fair shot.
No, there's parents that have lost kids scholarships. That's for sure. Like that's no question. I mean, I get texts all the time like I can't deal with the parent.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, there is parents out there that for sure have lost kids scholarships by the way they either act on social media, act on the court, or even just act through, you know, just doing certain things, and it's like that's too much for our program to be involved in. Like we want to play basketball, we want to coach a kid, try to win. Yeah. We don't want to have to worry about what his dad has to say about X. You know, we don't want his dad tweeting something on Twitter and now it becomes this whole thing. Now in the locker room, you got this kid who maybe doesn't even feel the way his dad does, right, but kind of has to take the mentality of sure. feeling the way his dad does, because that's his dad, and then you create friction within the team. Yeah. And that's the worst thing you can do.
So at the end of the day, a lot of people are like, well, you know, like don't listen to your parents, just be like, but like
they're your parents.
You're 18 years in, like where you're naturally just take their advice. So like you're right. If a player's like, you know, it's not a big deal that I'm not playing that much, and maybe this player actually gets it because he's in practice getting his ass busted and he knows why he's not playing. You know, but then when mom and dad are like, you know, you need to be playing, you know, like you're right, that narrative starts to be created.
Yeah.
But I do think, you know, these narratives are created just because the basketball media community, like for example the rankings, I feel like each year like they go a year younger to rank somebody. Like everybody wants to be the first one to rank the top 27 kids. So now rankings mean something. Because I mean, I'm not a parent, but I'm sure like I think that would be cool if like somebody said that my son was the top eight-year-old in the country, you know? Right. Hopefully the situation that I'm in as far as in the basketball world, I won't take that as serious. But as a parent, it's always going to be cool.
Yeah.
You know, so, but like in that, as that starts to pick up, you know, these kids are on the radar at a younger and younger age. So like this process and situation is magnified so much earlier to where like, if my son's being talked about for 8 straight years until they're 17 or 18, well, like, I'm not going to want to be able to think about the fact that, okay, maybe my kid isn't as good as he was 4 years ago. In my mind, he's always going to be better and better and better than everybody else.
No, that's the biggest thing. I think like they try to rank these kids so young, and it's almost like these like ranking guys or whatever. Like, well, I want to find the next one,
right? You
know, so let me rank, and it's like it doesn't matter. You know, like even my year, Major Wingate was the #1 player in the country in 8th grade. We had LeBron James in that class.
Right, yeah.
Like what? And nobody knows him. Like nobody knows him unless you're a basketball head. You don't know who Major Wingate is. You know, like he went to Tennessee, had an okay career, and that was it. So like you get in there, it's like, oh my goodness, my kid's the #1 freshman in the country. And let alone you have like your superstars. You know, like I think the kid Amani Bates is a superstar. But from what I've heard, he works like a superstar. So what he gets, he deserves. And I think he's just going to keep on getting better. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure.
You know, and then you got these kids that get ranked, and then all of a sudden it's like, you know, these kids that keep working are surpassing them, and they still think that they're that kid, and you're just, you know, you're not. But a lot of times we blame the kids. I think the kids should get the least amount of blame.
I agree.
I think it's the adults. We create the narrative, you know, whether it's me or you or the AAU coaches or the shoe companies or rankings or parents. Like, that's the narrative. That's, like, if we told them the truth, then they'll be fine.
Yeah.
The problem is we lie to them at a young age.
Right.
And say, oh, you're the number one sixth grader in the country. And then they walk around like and it's like, nah.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to be great, you better work like you want to be great.
Right.
And walk around and don't be cocky about it. I love players that are cocky in the court. Love it. I think you have to be. It's confident. But then when you go off the court, like, be a kid, do what you're supposed to do. Don't be that person off, like, think you're entitled.
Right.
You're not.
Yeah.
And a lot of these kids are entitled, and then when you get to college and that dude across from you is a top 20 kid too, now what?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Now, who's been through it?
I think it's even more than just top 20. Like, shoot, anybody, like, if these high majors that gets recruited, like, I don't care if you're 120 in the country. Like, if you're 120 and another kid's 30, like, that 120 kid.
Right. But even like the 120 kids get to be like back in the day when we grew up.
Because 120 is still probably the number one kid in the area for sure.
Right.
The top kid in the area, maybe in the state in some situations.
Yeah, but they still get like coddled and babied, and it's like, yo, you're not. The narrative is just, to me, is crazy. It's just throughout the list. I mean, you just go down like this is sophomores. We talked about Amani Bates, but these kids are really, really good.
Yeah.
Jayden Bradley is a kid from where I grew up, who lives in North Carolina now, but he's from Rochester, and he was really good when he was young, and ended up leaving Rochester for a better situation. But I know him. I've had a couple interactions with him, and I mean, he's just a great kid. Works, and then you go through like Dior Johnson.
Yeah.
I mean, he's created he's really good.
Right.
But he's almost like a social media phenomenon, right?
Yeah.
Is that the kid?
Yeah. And like, how do you think, like, people, like, with what I do as far as filming, like, mixtapes, The Ball's Life, and The Slam, how do you think that affects all these situations?
I mean, I think it's the same thing as everything. Like,
because, like, the kid, for example, who's the kid going to UNC Greensboro that played with Kamunga? The little guard.
Oh, you're talking about the kid from the Patrick School, Farrakhan, Noah.
Yeah, Noah Farrakhan.
So, like, Noah Farrakhan, if you watch his highlight tapes, you think he's going to Duke.
Like, that's one of Slam's favorite guys to film because of the views. But, like, I filmed him multiple times, like, for Slam, and, like, he's a solid, bouncy player, but it's more of a popularity thing now with a lot of these media guys.
Yeah. Of course, because it's about views. It's about, even like my social media. I mean, you and me talk about it all the time. Like, a fancy dribbling drill is going to do better than me breaking down like a concept.
Right.
So I have to put that out to stay up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And for, like, obviously I'm close with you, but I'm also close with like Brad from Ball is Life. Y'all got to do that to make your living. And then, the kids see it, and of course they're going to think they're, I mean, I never had highlight videos.
I think one of the things that, like, this year when the Thanksgiving Hoop Fest, shout out Glenn.
Yeah, for sure.
I think when everybody found out that LeBron James Jr. was coming to Dallas.
Yeah, it went crazy.
Yeah, they went crazy because they've seen, like, everything on social media, but then all of a sudden he doesn't start for that team. And now, I promise you, 60% of the arena was like, he doesn't play. And that was the first time they found out that he's young and he wasn't on this elite caliber level yet. But
you're talking about what you have, Amari Bailey.
Yeah, but people just see LeBron James so much on Slam and Ball is Life. Like, every single thing is magnified to any dunk, any play he makes. So these people are like, oh, he's the best in the country.
Right, and then you
like, it's just that
you create that narrative from him of, and he's LeBron James' kid. I mean, he's, but I mean the same thing with Michael Jordan back in the day. Jeffrey Jordan, like, he ended up going, I think, playing at Central Florida or something, which It's a great school.
Yeah.
But he wasn't Michael Jordan. Like, but I think like narratives get created. Like, LeBron's saying like, "Oh, I want to try to play with my son in the NBA." It's like, I mean, your son's really good, but that's the type of pressure you want to put on your son right now. Which maybe he knows his son more than I do.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what he needs.
There's still plenty of time, but for people to think, oh, LeBron James Jr. is the best player in the nation and stuff, it's just.
Yeah, right. He's a really good player in his class.
Yeah.
But you're talking about like that team had what? B.J. Boston, Amari Bailey,
Zaire Williams,
yeah. And then they had
Wade.
But Wade didn't play. That's another perfect example. Right. It's another like Wade to me. That's the most perfect. Like the fact that like, because I've heard from college coaches like he's just not that, But you would think he was. Mm-hmm. And he's not. Like, that's fine. But, now he's going to, a prep?
Yeah. I just think that since everything's a business, like with the filming situation, I understand that Ball is Life and Slam get money from being monetized on YouTube and social media, so it's all about the views. Mm-hmm. When I filmed for Slam, they really just wanted 5-star people. So I film RJ a lot and that type of things. Like, so like a lot of times kids would come to me and be like, why am I not on Slam's page? Like Micah Peavy, for example, would hit me up all the time and be like, can I make Slam's main page? I'm like, that's just not their model. Mm-hmm. With Brad understands with Ball's Life how to, not necessarily gimmicks, but find kids that are good that create views in situations like that, But when money's involved, with these sneaker teams that have to keep their deals, they need to go get the best players. That means they're, like you said, it's full circle. We'll say whatever we need to get the kid and the parents, like that. And it's just right, as long as money is involved in it, it's just going to continue to grow.
You just look at that Duncanville team, like Micah, who I love. I think Micah's one of my favorite players because he plays so hard. Mm-hmm. Like he plays basketball the way basketball's supposed to be played. And then Jamias. Like I remember going and watching Jamias play against Den Geyer, and I was like, "Holy shit, he's an NBA player."
Right.
Like I remember calling I was like, "Yo, this kid's disgusting."
Yeah.
And nobody was talking about him because because maybe he was quiet or what. But I mean, it wasn't even close who was the best player on that floor. And there was guys that were ranked ahead of him on that floor. And I'm like, what are these people watching that maybe I'm not watching?
Yeah.
And it wasn't even how he dominated offensively. It was what he did defensively and just from a dog mentality. And from then on, I was like, he's a first-round draft pick. Like, there's no question about it. And then he goes to Texas Tech and just is really, really good. But yeah, like you don't see Jamias Ramsey highlight tapes all the time. Right. You know what I mean? You see these other guys, but like we said, it's just a narrative of what it is.
Business, but it's just going to continue to get just broken down as such, just because more and more money is getting pumped into the situation.
Yeah, it's trickled down. It's like NBA, college, now high school, and now it just keeps going lower and lower.
The question is, how can we make a profit off these kids?
Right.
So, like you said, as long as rankings continue to go lower and lower to 20, these 8, 9, and 10-year-olds, well, that's where the video coverage is going to go.
Yeah, what's the lowest ranking now?
Well, what is it? 20? Where are we? 20, 27, 28?
All right, so Coast to Coast Preps, whatever this is, has 2026 player rankings. So 2026 makes you how old?
12. Right? Because 2020 right now is 18, so 11, 12, 13.
So these kids are 6th, 7th grade?
Yeah.
This is a joke. I mean, that's insane. How are you're out there watching these kids?
And the thing is, this is
who cares?
Yeah.
6th grader.
Yeah.
So these kids are in 6th grade.
And the difference between a 6th grade one weekend and the kid the next weekend is but I mean, if there's a platform for it, Coast to Coast, obviously, the worldwide leader in prep basketball coverage, so they're going to continue to just go as low as possible. Shoot.
2029.
29. I'm seeing that right now. Could you imagine that? National player rankings May 1st, 2020 for the class of 2029.
Those are third graders.
And how old's your son?
He's going to be a kindergartner. That's a joke. That's insane.
But I mean,
Oh, I didn't even think it was this bad.
yeah, the content's there. So like,
Aiden McClinton. That is one of my kids. That's wild.
yeah.
That's insane.
And like I said, like now these kids have a name at this age.
Right, but I don't even think the kids would know if the parents were like, hey, look at this.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And of course you're going to be a proud parent, but like, who cares?
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, I was a straight A student in third grade. Straight A's. You know why? Because it was fucking really easy. It was plus, minus, times this.
Yep.
Look at a picture, color it in. Like, that's what these kids are doing. They're young. None of these kids, I mean, this is just asinine. I'm actually mad.
Yeah, and this, like you said, like it's third grade, and now, like, okay, next year they're fourth grade, but in these parents' minds, they're always going to be the top kid in the class no matter what. And unless you're realistic about the situation, like you would be with your son, like they think this matters.
Yeah, it doesn't.
So by the time they're 17 and they're not ranked anymore, they're always going to be wondering why aren't they ranked.
That's insane.
It's a tough situation. That's why I'm glad I'm involved in like the basketball scene, because like hopefully I have a more realistic perspective on it.
Yeah.
Like what type of basketball what type of basketball dad do you think you're going to be? Like how are you at his games now?
I mean, I just sit there.
Because you say like a lot of the parents, because they know who you are, like try to get like ask your reaction and stuff like that. Don't they during the games?
Yeah, like they want to know why I don't really say anything and why I don't react and why, I don't try to coach him. And, I mean, his mom is worse than I am, and she's never played.
Yeah.
But that's because she loves him. But like for me, I don't care. Like, you're just go out and have fun, kid. Like,
Right.
I don't worry about, I'm not trying to tell you what to do.
Facts.
My job as the dad is to be his dad.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of parents, struggle at times with what their role is. Like, your role is to be a dad. Unless your son changes the narrative. Like, I changed my narrative with my dad. Like, I was like, no, I want to play in the NBA. He's like, all right, I'm going to push you. And it was like, cool. And then our whole narrative changed. Like, me and him got into it all the time. But that's what I told him I wanted. So I think like we push things on these kids that we don't know if they want it or not, but we want it. Like, it doesn't matter what we want. That's what the kid wants. If Theo tells me in 7th grade, like, I want to play in the NBA, I'm going to be like, all right, cool. Like, we're not always going to get along. I'll push you.
Right.
And I'm going to tell you when you don't work hard and when you're being lazy or, whatever. But if he, as a 7th grader, says, well, I want to do this, then you support that. Where a lot of parents, I think, are trying to either live through their kids or try to create what their kid's going to be. It's like,
No, facts.
it's crazy.
Let's open this up to a discussion with YouTube. Let's talk about in the comments the pros and cons of AAU basketball. We can go back and talk about the G League, the college situation. Like, what are y'all's points and views on this situation? Where do you see this going in the future? We both think that as far as money continues to get pumped into it, it's just going to get even more out of control. Share your experiences with the situation, and we look forward to talking to y'all soon.
Yes, sir.